Paul, give it to me. Paul, give it to me.
Blow us all to hell!
Paul, give it to me. Paul,
Blow us all to hell!
Paul, set him up. Set him up. Paul, set him up. Paul, give it to me.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the one, the only, Smooth Thrills Radio Hour. Your guide to movies in their cultural context, what they meant to us then, and what they mean to us today. So this is going to be a little bit of a departure from our usual format. This is the first in what is a very loose two-part sort of a thing. This will all make a lot more sense after the second one, I think. Probably. If it doesn't, just forget I said any of this, wipe your memory banks and move on. Anyway, this time around we're talking about a classic of late 1980s nuclear paranoia exploitation cinema, The Manhattan Project. Nathan and Joe are here to discuss and dissect. But first, Lieutenant Colonel Conroy, I know you're a big, long-time fan of the show. How do you like the content lately? No, wait, not content. What's the word I'm looking for?
What, killer? Is that the word you're groping for, Doctor? And just what the bloody hell do you think you've been working on all these years? What do you think all this is for? Your own personal amusement? To stimulate you intellectually? You are what you are, Doctor, a son of a bitch like the rest of us. Now, for God's sake, take some responsibility and do what has to be done.
See, I'll always love your note-taking style because you write 3 words max.
Well, that's all I need to remember, so I can remember what the point was. Like, I've already fucked up my original note, which was I was going to pretend like I accidentally watched Made in Manhattan.
Oh.
That's about the only way I would watch it. Nathan probably has the 4K Blu-ray release of Made in Manhattan.
It's probably signed by anybody that's been at Frightmare.
Signed by somebody, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of Made in Manhattan Frightmare crossover going on. You'd be amazed.
Made in Manhattan Baby, like the Fulci Lopez crossover, maybe. I don't know.
Jennifer Lopez's left ass cheek was in Sleepaway Camp 5.
Was it?
Okay.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it turns out it was a tit. Wasn't an ass cheek.
I don't know where you do this research, but it's fascinating.
It's in the gutters. That's where I do it.
Gutters.
In the gutters, baby.
Well, anyway, I suppose we should go ahead and get going now.
We're just 6 minutes in.
Got warmed up.
Oh.
I know we usually wait till 7, but we're going to go ahead.
We can keep this
My
going.
hair is set. I'm ready.
There was one time we went 20 full minutes before you started the episode, so we'll see what happens. Anything can happen. It's the Smooth Thrills Radio Hour.
But what should happen is Jason's intro.
Well, what should happen right now is we're going to take a little trip back to the 1980s. And I know we don't really talk about the 1980s much on this show, but we're going to do it this time. Just hold your applause and surprise. So, in the 80s, we were entering what you would call a brave new world. This was the world of the PC revolution. Now, if you were a kid with parents that had a lot of money and access to a phone line, you could get yourself this newfangled thing called a personal computer and a little fancy doohickey called a modem. And with a PC and a modem, the world could be yours. All you had to do was dial a number you found in a computer magazine, listen briefly to something that sounded like robots screaming at each other, and you could do anything. At least that's what the parents thought. See, they didn't really understand what was happening. All they knew about these machines was what they saw on movies and TV. They knew Robbie the Robot. They knew Kit from Knight Rider, maybe. But what was happening at their own family computer desk? These little innocent children were typing these weird, incomprehensible symbols onto a screen and communicating with screaming robots. They were entranced, but the adults, they gazed on in horror. What were these kids up to? And why? Maybe they were just trying to find some new games, but really breaking into a dangerous government computer. Maybe they were connecting a Frankenstein's lab worth of these computer things up to a magazine photo to conjure new life into the world. And maybe, like the reckless teenager at the center of the movie we're discussing today, they were accessing plans to build the first privately owned atomic bomb. But really, despite the parents' paranoia and possibly overblown fears about these little 8-bit machines, there actually was something going on to be worried about. A growing number of very young people who did not yet really know how the world works, didn't really know how other people work, and didn't really even know themselves yet were charging into a very big world of very seductive technology without the ability to think through all the possible consequences of their actions. In the words of the great poet, philosopher, and mathematician Dr. Ian Malcolm, they were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Should I conjure an artificial woman because I'm horny and want to get back at a bunch of high school bullies? Should I break into NORAD and cause some chaos? Should I build an atomic bomb to scare off mom's new boyfriend? Sure, why the hell not? Welcome everyone to the Smooth Throws Radio Hour. We are talking about the Manhattan Project. This one doesn't get discussed very much. Usually when we go into these types of 80s films, you're talking about war games and Real Genius, stuff like that. Manhattan Project kind of got left behind, and I'm not sure why exactly. We're going to get into that. Joe, for example, this was your first viewing of this film. I know Nathan's seen it bunches of times. I've seen it a few times.
Oodles.
Oodles would be a good term to use. What was your main takeaway, Joe, after seeing this thing?
The first hour was it was okay. It was some decent, character building. We're understanding who everybody is, sort of. It didn't really start to take off, I don't think, until the last hour. We had an hour, and then we had the intermission, which was also the
80s montage.
15-minute montage, yes, with the Christmas music. And then the last hour. And I did look on the IMDb trivia because I wanted to know if there was an alternate ending. But the score was inspired by The First Noel, which was very weird, according to IMDb trivia, which is
IMDb. Oh, absolutely. IMDb trivia is solid gold, man.
Yeah.
But you kind of hear that, and I got that with hearing it, and just I didn't like the music at all. Didn't like it at all.
The score doesn't do this movie any favors. I mean, there's nothing...
It's a bit too whimsical.
Terribly wrong with it. It's perfectly functional, but it...
Oodles of whimsy.
It doesn't seem to work with it. It needs more bleeps and bloops noises. I mean, it's not...
But it's not really that computer-centric.
No.
Huh.
You with your opening, you're talking about modems and gadgetry and all that stuff. But it wasn't it was more mechanical. It was, he's building his monster.
Right.
It just lives in that same world as Real Genius and War Games.
Yeah.
Which, god damn it, out of all those, Real Genius is the best.
Well...
What is? You tell me.
I can't divide any of them.
Yeah, Real Genius had a scientific consultant, and this movie most clearly did not. If we really want to get into picking this thing apart on its scientific merits, we could spend quite a while doing so. It has some problems on that front, to be sure. But I don't think we got movies like this before the 1980s. I can't really think of any. Usually it was, something would come from outer space and the kids would find it or something like that. I mean, the only 80s movie I could think of that was kind of like that throwback was something like My Science Project, maybe?
Well, it wasn't really until then that science was actually, I don't know how to describe it, used for something, was set in reality, where in a lot of the science fiction movies of the 50s and 60s, they had all these dials and shit with, bubbles going everywhere, and they're just like, aha, and this does this, and science does nothing, and apparently Bane is talking. Science didn't have to make sense as long as it was stuff you didn't see before. If it was foreign objects to you, then that's scientific. So to an audience in a laboratory with a bunch of dials and,
bubbly things, a Tesla coil.
Yeah, and little lasers or maybe electrodes and whatnot, then that was completely weird, and, well, that must be science.
We had a laser in this movie. Mm-hmm. Come on now.
Well, you're right. About the 80s is where you started using that as a plot device. So you started examining the science as part of your plot, or your emphasis on the plot, maybe. But
Real Genius
kind of
is a plot corn device. The laser.
It does.
God damn.
And Weird Science really doesn't tackle this topic in a serious way, but you still have the same sort of
That's probably the most
overall
on point
theme.
scientifically, though.
That's the most entertaining.
One thing they do have in common, and why I started thinking about those movies in relation to this one, is that this is a movie written by grown-ups about these kids that they don't get so much. I mean, John Hughes being the exception, he's still kind of... That movie was more about the interactions of the kids. It wasn't,
Right.
They're a threat to our society now because they have access to military computers or something.
It was, how are they going to become more popular, but then find themselves?
This is the adult interpretation of how the kids are using this stuff in ways that they do not understand or didn't think were possible.
This was them trying to... Wait, what year did this come out? Was it like...
86.
This was released
Was it 86?
June 1986, yes.
So, I can't... What year did Ferris Bueller come out?
Same year.
Same year? Because, I mean, it seems like somebody was like, hey, can we get this kid to be a little Ferris Bueller?
I was thinking more
I
MacGyver.
don't think they were influenced.
Yeah. You were thinking what?
I was thinking more MacGyver. I mean, MacGyver was really new when this came out and couldn't possibly have been an influence, but, when he unlocks a glove box with a pine cone and a stick of gum or something, I started thinking,
Well, he had his trusty nail clippers through the whole film. But like just his attitude and his one-liners, his joking, it felt very like he was very breezy about everything until he was like sitting there with the bomb in his lap.
Yeah.
And he was like, wait a
smart ass.
second.
Yeah, and then Lithgow was like, you don't know what you stole. You have no idea what you did.
Yeah.
Well, he never faced any consequences in his life, apparently. I mean, even in this movie, except for being temporarily inconvenienced by some government interrogators, nothing happens to Paul. Even when he has the bomb and he's sitting there thinking about holding this bomb, thinking about setting it off, does not think about his mom anymore. This is him. What's happening to me? It's all about me.
Well, to be fair, anybody's going to get to that point after being cock-blocked like 3 times. Whether or not it's Cynthia Nixon, it doesn't matter.
Right.
That it's just going to happen. You're gonna get fed up.
Maybe.
Good one, Joe. Thank you, unnamed laughing person. What was the movie with that they were watching? Because I just wrote down Evil Dead words.
Which movie? Who is watching?
Paul and Jenny. Was that her name?
When they're studying?
Yeah, when they're studying and before he brings about his plan, there's a black and white movie on. And
that was Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah.
Okay.
But those are Evil Dead words, yes.
The movie that the mom and her new boyfriend are watching before he breaks into his glove box with the window down during a thunderstorm. That was, in fact, Two for the Road with Audrey Hepburn and Albert Finney. It was not Two for the Money.
With Matthew McConaughey.
or Kickboxer 2, The Road Back. It was neither of those. These are common mistakes. It was.
Or Three for the Road with Charlie Sheen and Alan Ruck. Did you catch the what's on the television when he's at Cynthia Nixon's house and they're studying / babysitting?
That's what I was talking about.
Well, there's two instances.
Later on, there's like a puppet show in the background on the TV.
I saw it. I couldn't identify it, though.
So that is the second pilot for The Muppet Show, which Marshall Brickman wrote, or he was one of the writers on. It was called Sex and Violence, and it aired about a year before The Muppet Show went into syndication.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's a nice little in-joke. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, according to IMDb, there was a lot of in-jokes in this movie.
Not as many as, say, The Howling, but yeah, there were a few.
Well, like, for instance, with the... crap, I can't remember exactly what they were, but it was like whenever he says we're all sons of bitches, apparently that's what one of the guys says to Oppenheimer after making the atomic bomb. Or no, it was after the first detonation. And then what was the other one? Oh, yeah, just referring to it as a gadget. I was like, that's so weird that they're just calling it a gadget. But apparently that's what they called the atomic bomb as well. It was a gadget. And that just struck me as very odd, so I had to look it up.
And as clinical as this movie is, it is very much a satire, which I think is a loss on a lot of people.
Let's get into that for just a second. Let's discuss Marshall Brickman himself for a moment. This was a guy who came through the business writing for Woody Allen, several movies that also include the word Manhattan, like Manhattan and Manhattan Murder Mystery, before he did this.
Manhattan trilogy.
You betcha. There was an interview he did with the New York Times right after this movie came out. It was released right after the movie came out, 1986. Now, the New York Times referred to the movie as a comedy. In this article, Marshall Brickman is quoted as the following. Mr. Brickman's goal in writing The Manhattan Project was to make something completely different from what he calls yak and track movies, in which the dialogue is the main engine of plot. Quote, "Jokes are easy," he says, speaking with the intensity of the reformed alcoholic. Don't know what that means. "Humor comes to me so easily, I'm suspicious of it. I secrete jokes like the pancreas secretes whatever the pancreas secretes. It's pancakes. I wanted character. I wanted to go for the emotions that the kid feels, that the scientist feels. I wanted the audience to feel the seductiveness of machinery." I think this is a movie he took pretty seriously, despite its oddly jokey moments. Maybe not intentionally jokey. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it may not be. I mean, it's not entirely a satire, but there's satirical elements throughout. And I don't know if that's a comment on movies like War Games. But if you look at all his stuff, yeah, it's all comedy up to that point. Like Simon in particular would probably be the closest in this realm, maybe. Yeah. Also, he wrote for The Tonight Show for a good while. He was the head writer on The Tonight Show. Yeah.
It's hard not to see some points of satire, like at the very beginning when they do the demonstration and the guy says, referring to the doctor, "Set him up in a watertight facility that also does tours and has one security guard who's 75 years old and doesn't know any of the equipment works." I mean, come on.
Sully Boyer from Dog Day Afternoon.
Was he really?
Yeah. That whole sequence is terrific with the frisbee, and he's like calling the guy, and he's like, all the systems are going nuts. I can't get.
Well, you have the scene before that also where Paul's talking to her and Jenny. He's like, "There's lightning. Electricity messes up electricity things. We can break into the place." They launched this whole plan in maybe 2 hours on how to break in there into this watertight
it's all very
facility.
Convenient.
Oh, yeah. Very convenient. So I don't know. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say, because we're, talking about faces that are popping up. We got Richard Jenkins, and I think John Lithgow was in the movie. But I was really surprised to see
here and there
old Timmy Carhart from Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Or my favorite, the party animal.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. But he was changing the car tire. Was he roadside assistance or was he another security guard?
I don't know who the hell he was. I have no idea who he was.
He was like, "Hey, I travel in the rain with my window down. I see your window is
Everybody
down."
does. Everybody does that.
No, he works there. Remember, because he goes back into the facility.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like talking about, "Hey, she's a cutie," and he's like, "Remember, you're a married man, blah, blah, blah."
And she's a teenager, but, whatever.
Yeah, but he is Studley from the party animal, so just saying. And if you've not seen that, trust me, see it. Yeah. It's one of the greatest 80s sex comedies ever, period. Unknown virtually, but brilliant.
So our great uncle Roger Ebert gave this movie 4 stars, saying, and I'm quoting here, "It's a tour de force. The way he combines stop laughing, Joe. The way he combines everyday personality conflicts with a funny, oddball style of seeing things, and wraps the whole package into a tense, effective thriller. It's not often that one movie contains so many different kinds of pleasures." Note he referred to it as a thriller. So all that, this was distributed through 20th Century for Gladden Entertainment, which we can get into in a sec.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to unpack in that one, yeah. You're the executive in charge there. How do you market this movie? Who is this movie for?
This was theatrically released?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was under the impression, I don't know why, but I just thought it was a made-for-TV thing.
That's an easy mistake to make, given the way it sounds, especially. I think the score doesn't help that.
Yeah, that was a big thing, and just the opening credits felt very made-for-TV.
Yeah.
But overall, it doesn't, the movie itself, the actors, doesn't feel made-for-TV.
There's a lot of TV actors in the movie, especially Jill Eikenberry, who was best known for being on LA Law when this came out.
And then just it felt just padded enough that it would be something that would be either made for TV or maybe like a 2-night mini-series type of thing. Like
it was supposed to be an hour and a half and they had to add stuff in to get it to where the commercials would work. I get that.
So to answer your question, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting that it is the length that it is, given its marketability. No, I mean, so how do you market this, like you're saying?
I don't know.
You know, is it a comedy?
Well, it's not a movie made for the kids, necessarily. I think it's a movie...
But it kind of is, you know? I mean, War Games, what would you say War Games is?
That was a movie, I think, just like this one, intended to scare the shit out of adults.
But, I mean, it's aimed at kids, primarily, as your audience.
It felt like an escape movie for kids.
Well,
you know,
that was sort of pitched as an idea as to why it wasn't more successful. This movie had a budget of $18 million, brought in 3.9, which is not great. But there was talk that, it wasn't marketed well, or it came too quickly after the Chernobyl disaster, and nobody wanted to...
That's what she said.
Nobody wanted to see more nuclear movies, which I think is kind of bullshit, because that's how exploitation movies work. I can't say that was it. I think it more had to do with what was in theaters right alongside it.
Oh, yeah.
Run down the murderers row here. So this was a June release. May of that year, you had Last Resort, Short Circuit, Top Gun, Cobra, Poltergeist 2, and Crawl Space. I'm just throwing Crawl Space in there. I know it's not a factor. June, Invaders from Mars, Raw Deal, Space Camp, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Back to School, Labyrinth, Running Scared, Ruthless People, and My Little Pony the movie, I'll point out.
This had no chance.
Not
Manhattan
much,
Project
basically.
got mixed in with that, and then the next month it hits you with About Last Night, Big Trouble in Little China, Psycho 3, Under the Cherry Moon, Howling 2, Club Paradise, Maximum Overdrive, and, of course, Aliens. And if you hadn't made your case for an audience in theaters by the time that came out, you were screwed.
You had no chance whatsoever.
I think that had more to do with why this movie did not pull in the numbers. I could be wrong.
It may have also been late to the game in terms of the material. Like, if this had been made the previous year, Real Genius and Weird Science, even though that year, forget it.
Yeah.
Nothing could compete in that year either.
No.
But, maybe it was a little worn out by that point, you know? Whatever audience they were aspiring to.
So did Gladden Entertainment just take too long to get this one out? Because it had been in development for a while, I think.
This was the first Gladden production. Although I think Wisdom may have been the first deal, but that came out later.
So incidentally, Joe, we'd mentioned Gladden Entertainment before, and this would be a good time to bring up something about the history of that hot mess. When you're talking about Gladden, you're talking about, I'm probably going to mispronounce the name, sorry, David Begelman. Not Bagelman, I think it's Begelman. B-E-L.
Or Begelman, yeah.
Begelman. So 1973, he took over at Columbia Pictures. He made movies you have heard of, movies like Shampoo, Funny Girl, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But then in 1977, Cliff Robertson, I think you know who Cliff Robertson is, got a 1099 form showing that he had received $10,000 that he actually never got. He discovered a check with a forged signature on it that Begelman had forged and embezzled the money from Columbia. Begelman got sentenced to community service. Columbia Pictures told him to go kick rocks, and that should have been the end of his career. Except he was a Hollywood producer, and they kind of like that shit. So in 1980, he was appointed Chief Operating Officer at MGM, which by default made him Chairman of UA. He produced more movies you've heard of, Clash of the Titans and Poltergeist. MGM let him go. I don't really know the circumstances behind that. In 1982, he formed Sherwood Productions, where he produced War Games, Mr. Mom, Blame It on Rio, and The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai with John Lithgow. Coincidence? I think not. That partnership...
Well, let's dial it back a little bit.
You want to go all the way back to...
the Cliff Robertson situation. So that was in 77, but it was something to do with 76. So that year he did Brian De Palma's Obsession at Columbia. So I think he was targeted because that was like the only production he had anything to do with Columbia at that time. So he figured this will go by, no one will notice. And John Lithgow's in Obsession.
Really?
And he's also in Buckaroo Banzai. So it's a little interesting. Like, he kind of stuck by him quite a bit.
Perhaps,
and it wasn't a Hollywood secret. Everybody knew about what he was doing. Yeah. So you can't come into it and go, no, this guy's playing dirty pool. You got to know what he's doing.
Well, he'd also been implicated years before that for extorting money out of Liza Minnelli.
Or Judy Garland.
Julie Garland.
Yeah, he was her manager.
Very nasty situation. Anyway, 84, Sherwood collapses. Beglin takes the assets and forms Gladden Entertainment. Produces a bunch of movies, including the one we're talking about here, but by 93 had run up so much debt that the creditors forced him into liquidation of the whole thing. So everything Gladden Entertainment and Sherwood had got bought up by, I'm going to mispronounce this too because it's French, Credit Lyonnais, the bank, which then sold everything to Polygram, which in turn sold everything to MGM, and the whole thing sort of came full circle. That's why MGM has their logo on this now, even though they had absolutely nothing to do with the production in any way.
No.
I did find it interesting, that he had worked with Lithgow so many times and had also produced War Games, which kind of leads you straight into this.
Yeah. Gladden only did, I think, 10 movies, and they were all distributed through 20th Century Fox. The two biggest ones, probably, well, maybe three biggest, but the two biggest were probably the Andrew McCarthy, Weekend at Bernie's, and Mannequin. They also did Mannequin 2, not so much. Short Time, The Fabulous Baker Boys, Millennium.
Chris Christopherson movie?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, we're thinking of the same one, yeah.
Short Time with Dabney Coleman.
Yep.
That movie's funny.
It is funny. And Gleaming the Cube was one of them.
Yes.
Along with Wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
The Sicilian. I think that's it. Yeah, just those.
So it's not like the guy didn't know what he was doing. Yeah, he had a long track record of very successful films, but this was not one of them.
Very sticky.
Yes. Well, Joe, I think it was Alex Winter that pointed out why there's so many $100 million movies made and nothing in the $1 to $10 million range anymore. It's because, as he put it, it's a lot easier for the producer to embezzle money from the $100 million movie than it is from the $1 million movie. You can cover your tracks a lot more easily. And that's exactly what this guy was doing. It was proud tradition of Hollywood production. He just may have overstepped a little bit here and there.
So, yeah, Roland's a bitch. What is this in the okay, what was his science fair project, Roland's? Because in the IMDb trivia,
Internet.
There was something in there. Was it?
Effectively, yeah. I freeze framed on the poster, and it was connecting world knowledge through computers.
Okay.
Was it? I tried to pick out more of the science fair posters, but I couldn't really. There was something about studies of the dangers of aspartame and something to do with frogs, but that was all. It all goes by in such a blur. It's kind of hard to tell. That was an actual science fair, though. Actual science fair participants involved, as far as I know.
No, kind of like whenever they shoot at a prison and they use some real inmates.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah. All right. Second chances for everyone.
So what do we think of the moment when they get to the... I thought the movie was going to end at the science fair when I first saw this. I thought, okay, this is the climax of the movie. The lone gunman... Not the lone gunman. The four guys. The four other kids show up. Well, it feels like it should be there, right?
Yeah.
Maybe,
But no. Nobody else.
That's just where the movie really began, I think. That's whenever it started to get very interesting to me.
Well, that's the weight of the situation really kicks in.
Yeah.
Did you not like
the feds involved and all that? Yeah.
Well, Joe, did you not like the 80s training montage we got where you get to see that can of classic Coke make an appearance in the film as it's propping up part of the bomb, and he cuts up a whole bunch of grapefruit and then in a panic throws them away because the doctor might look at those and go, you're building a bomb, aren't you?
Cantaloupes, sir. Those were cantaloupes.
Cantaloupes, my mistake. Or when he's reading the book and highlights Best Kept Secret In and stops there. I don't know why. Why that jumps out at me. I just thought it was hilarious. And the fact that he's buying an incubator for chicken eggs and thinking, this will work. This has got to work. A chicken egg incubator and some PVC pipe. I'm protected from the plutonium. I think that's why they let them all go at the end of the movie, because they figured they're all going to die from radiation exposure in a few hours anyway, so who cares?
Yeah, that's a very convenient ending as well. There's no epilogue. There's no, they just go. Well, it would have been like the sunset,
like their actual would have been like the actual Dodgeball ending, where instead in the Manhattan Project, they open the door and everybody gets shot in the head and dies, and that's the end of the film.
But yeah, that was another reason, like how convenient the ending was, that made me think, like, and hope that there was another alternate ending. Because part of the reason why I felt it ramped up so much is because they did a good job of not knowing if they were going to, if the bomb was going to go off or not. They did a good job of suspending. Also,
and you get the line before. Yeah, and you get the line, one of the best lines in the movie, before back at the hotel, when he tells him they'll lock you up in a room and throw away the room. Mm-hmm. You don't know who you're dealing with here. That, and there's more to life than freezing toads, which is probably the second best line in the movie. But
I'm telling you, this movie's funny, dude. I mean, the whole
you're only saying
Paul character is just a smartass throughout.
Yeah,
like Cynthia Nixon will bring up like Anne Frank, and he goes, "Who's that?"
Girl in my English class. Yeah.
Yeah, and then same thing with Woodward and Bernstein. Of course he knows who they are.
Oh, that's funny.
You can't be a fan of Jean-Paul Sartre and not know.
Or eyeball.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there it is.
Well, speaking to that point there about he doesn't know who Anne Frank is or Woodward and Bernstein or any of that stuff. He is all about his own ego. And this is not uncommon. We've seen a serious number of these tech bros come up over the years who were so enamored with the science and the math and making the algorithm and everything that they never took a sociology class. They never took an anthropology class. They know the tech, but not how anybody's going to use it or think about it. And they sure shit don't understand any kind of humility. That's Paul.
Yeah,
that's anybody you can point to now that's anybody you can point to now who runs anything on the internet. They don't know anything about how people actually think. They just want to build the tech.
No, you're right on.
Pretty spot on there.
He's just not a rich kid. That's probably the only exception.
I just got through watching Silicon Valley, so I agree with your...
Yes. He is not a rich kid, but he has access to some very expensive stuff. Especially, I'm thinking...
Makes do.
If you recall the scene where they do the unfolding soccer ball simulation, that unwrapping simulation, bear with me now, this is technical shit, is the Tektronix 4054A, and you've seen it before. It was used all over movies and TV because it could render vector graphics really quickly and didn't flicker on camera. Original recipe Battlestar Galactica was littered with these things. They were also not cheap.
Original recipe.
Yeah. They weren't cheap either. In 2023 dollars, that PC that Paul used would have had a retail price of about $51,000. So just getting access to this thing seems kind of sus. I don't know. Maybe he knows people. He's okay with it. He knows guys that have C4 and just, hey, don't blow yourself up.
And D-cell batteries, I mean, come on.
Those are pricey. Those are pricey.
Mm-hmm. Especially in today's market.
Would it have been wrong to take those out before cutting the wires?
Yes, they said it would possibly create a spark.
Yep.
Yeah. Between him and John Lithgow.
Anything.
And Cynthia Nixon's out.
Anything at all. Apparently.
Especially flipping 6 wires at the same time.
Yep. Cutting a wire with nail clippers, no spark possibilities.
No.
You sticking your finger there and popping out a D-volt, total sparkage. That's the way it goes.
Makes sense.
You clip any wire but those 6 wires at the same time, fucking Spark City, baby.
Oh, we just drop it on the ground and break it. What happens then? I don't know.
Then you broke your salad bowls.
Oh, the salad. Yeah, Mom's going to want the salad bowls back.
I wonder if she ever got her Palm Olive back.
From a VO5.
Well, they say it's VO5, but it was in a Palm Olive bottle.
Well, it's got a VO5 label on it, though.
Did it? I thought it had a Palm Olive label because it had the very unmistakable Palm Olive.
Either way, it's just as realistic a prop, no matter which way you want to go with it.
I love that. I just like how long it's sitting in that room for...
They don't know.
They had to run all the fucking tests on it.
He fucking sniffs it. He's just like, I'm going to take a chance here. This might be plutonium, but I'm going to smell it. No, yeah, beautiful. It smells like my girlfriend's hair. Wait a second. Where's Paul?
So what you're suggesting there, Nathan, is despite Brickman's best efforts, he made a comedy anyway.
He had to, he had to know. I mean, you just said that
I would hope so.
Comedy is inherent in his tone no matter what, but he tried not to.
He secretes it, he said.
Right.
Yeah, with his pancreas and whatever pancreas secretes.
Again, it's pancakes.
I believe you.
What's with the remote control situation? Like, first time I saw that, I thought, oh, okay, because he doesn't want to deal with the plutonium. He doesn't want to touch it, right?
Oh.
So he's using the remote control
car.
The
TV show remote control. Sorry.
No. Which may have been plutonic. I don't know.
You could pick this thing to pieces. Like Lithgow mentions, this is a copper vapor laser, the most powerful laser in the world. No, it isn't. I looked it up. Copper vapor lasers are the most powerful metal vapor laser in the world, not the most powerful.
Looks like
Google history.
John Lithgow again.
At its highest power, a copper vapor laser can etch glass.
But can you say that 3 times fast?
It's mostly used in dermatology now. The first time I saw it used was actually Pink Floyd in the Division Bell tour. They used copper lasers. So it's very dangerous.
Yeah, but Lithgow knew about him before the Division Bell tour.
Yeah. He was like,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He wasn't kidding whenever he said this will shear the pubics off of something with pubic hair. He said that.
I don't remember that line, but okay.
The furrowed brow response.
I don't remember that.
Powerful laser that
I don't recall that one. I would have written that.
Doors and walls.
I think I would have written that down.
For RC trucks.
It's hard not to get hung up on the technicalities of this.
Like, how did he know how the entire machine worked?
There's that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like he's going.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much guessing
everything is and what it's supposed to do.
That's what we like to do around plutonium is guess. He has just an absolutely absurd level of knowledge of absolutely everything going into this film, but it is distracting. It's supposed to be a human drama, right? At least according to Brickman. And
it really didn't become one until the end, whenever he finally found humility and realized he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. He didn't realize the consequences. Both of it, like everything in those that probably last half hour, 40 minutes was so fucking good. It was just like everybody was doing great. A bunch of, their performances were amped up. Like in the beginning, it just seemed like they were going through it and just like, yes, I'm here to fucking.
Well, you're building to that. Yeah.
Well, you're building to it, but then it also just feels like they're coasting to it. It doesn't feel like they're really.
See, I don't think that. I think it's pretty. I think the whole movie's pretty well balanced in terms of like I'm connected to the story and liking how it builds its way up to that finale.
That's why we stopped sharing a brain, Nathan.
I just wonder why they never detained Jenny. They just kind of let her walk off, and that's it. I mean, she kind of. Once they leave the hotel or interrogate Paul, they just kind of say, go away. Yeah. We know you're an accomplice, but, whatever.
Right. Well, I didn't. As a lawyer, if you remember correctly.
Oh, that's true.
So those threats, they carry weight.
Maybe there's a deleted scene that explains that. I don't know. Speaking of that, this movie has, as far as I know, never really had a reasonably good release. It was released on DVD, but if I remember right, the only extras on it were interactive menus and maybe the trailer.
Yeah. Well, the Blu-ray, the Kino Lorber Blu-ray only has the trailer as well. There's no commentary, no historian. Really? Yeah, which, by the way, is going out of print. So, depending on when this airs, Kino Lorber does have a Wall Supplies last sale, and it's in there. Most of their 20th Century Fox, MGM type titles are no longer going to be in print through them.
That's what y'all should do is start doing movies. Like we'll do podcast episodes on movies that we know are going out of print, and then we can claim it's the Smooth Thrills effect. Why they're going up in price and people want them, and there's a demand.
There you go.
I will submit this episode as the new commentary track. It doesn't go the full 2 hours, and if we happen to say something about what's happening on screen, it's just a coincidence, but there you go.
Just slow the audio down. It'll sound like we all have colds, and it'll last the whole time. Well, I suppose John Lithgow's pretty good.
This came after he was Yoda on the Empire Strikes Back original radio drama, you know.
Hey, you guys like Third Rock from the Sun? I sure do.
This is the ASMR edition of Smooth Thrills.
What's the deal with Harry and the Hendersons? He wasn't that Harry. I expected Harry Belafonte. I got a damn Sam Squatch.
Don't you hate that?
So is it just that this movie didn't deserve a release, or what extras would you put on there? There may not be anything. I mean, you could interview some people, but I suppose, but, you know.
I was expecting, especially with Kino Lorber, maybe just like a film historian commentary at least.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Kim Newman's not available for this one? Or does he only do other genre stuff?
He's too busy doing, Hammer releases, that kind of thing.
Couldn't get
it needs something. And maybe Christopher Collet could do a commentary at some point.
I got it. They should get 5 people who have never seen it before, sit them down in the room and record that. And that's the commentary track.
No, you don't want that. You don't want that.
How about four people and Richard Jenkins?
Okay, maybe.
And he's just telling them to shut the fuck up.
They could get Richard Counsell and Richard Jenkins, because they could talk about Richard Counsell about street walking at the same time.
Okay. There you go. Yeah, it does deserve something. I think it's ripe for rediscovery. Maybe the next edition, whomever has it, maybe they will do some bells and whistles.
Or they could get a commentary with the corpse of John Mahoney.
Okay.
Was I too late with that one?
Yeah. Actually, he's too late. That's the joke.
Oh, damn!
Here in the studio, we have Frasier's dead. Ah, shit. Never mind.
No, evidently John Lithgow was approached to play Frasier on Cheers and turned it down way back when.
Because he didn't want to do television. He wanted to do films.
Yeah, he was busy.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see how he would do a guest spot on a TV show during that period.
He had already done a TV movie, Mom, the Wolfman, and Me. Why would he want to be on Cheers? Done that.
And the day after.
And the day after, yes.
Another Smooth Thrills alumni.
One of the least revisited episodes in the whole catalog, but yes, it's there.
I think that's one of my favorite movies that I've been introduced to through this podcast.
That one?
Really?
I enjoyed it. I like the idea of the story after. Rather than, because everything is always leading up to annihilation. I'm interested in what's going on after.
We don't get a lot of post-apocalypse movies anymore. So yeah, I can see that.
And if we do, they're, set 50 years after, not the day after.
50 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I find a lot more fascinating.
Because you don't even get like a Strange Brew kind of thing.
That's like the window of survival is then,
Do we think that Christopher Collet's character of Paul could also be the same Paul from Sleepaway Camp if he hadn't been beheaded at the end of the movie? And then he got really smart and stuff. Because we don't know anything about that Paul's family history.
That's the one deleted scene that we'd get on the next eventual release, is his head in a jar bubbling. And they're just like, all right, time to reattach it and start this thing.
They could do an identical twin thing, maybe. I would like to think that Sleepaway Camp and the Manhattan Project inhabit the same cinematic universe.
Yeah, I mean, regionally it kind of makes sense.
And it would still be the MCU. We'd just call it the Manhattan Cinematic Universe. You see, the only other note that I didn't say anything about was I think it was during the opening credits, whenever they're going through all the working parts of the lab with the plutonium and stuff, and he's showing them, showing the military guys everything. It felt like I was watching a really, really old, unshown episode of Breaking Bad. It very much felt like it was a big weaponized meth lab. It was very interesting.
The pride he takes in all that gear is the same.
Yeah. was very happy.
Now this shit'll kill you, but I'm making it perfectly kill you kind of stuff.
It's the purest plutonium in the universe.
But once you put it into goo, though, it doesn't do anything. It's amazing.
At that point in the opening credits, I had an alternate title for the movie. Not seeing anything else but those opening credits. My alternate title was The Adventures of Young Doc Brown.
Oh.
Intriguing. It's a very interesting theory.
Where was it? Who did he rip off? The Albanians? Was it the Albanians or?
God, I just watched this.
Given the time period,
If only we had a time machine.
It might have been Libyans.
Libyans, yes. I can hear it in Christopher Lloyd's voice now. Libyans!
I'm just basing that off the year it came out. Who was
Marty!
the bad guy du jour at the time? Yeah, it would have been it.
Oh, God, that's going to be a sad day whenever we lose Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
He's a treasure.
And you could lump Back to the Future in with that same, that's another thing. Like, that's part of that same teenage science kind of vibe, you know. And certainly it was this previous year, 85.
It was too punk rock with its Huey Lewis and the News and a doo-wop and, you know.
Well, you remember, Nathan, the essay I found that described the movie as appealing to the average American's fascination with time travel and screwing your parents. I swear, Joe, that's exactly how it was worded in the essay, and there was no footnote. There was nothing directing you to a Psychology Today article to back that up. It was just presented as common knowledge fact.
What if Oedipus could go back in time?
And I'm reading this like, what the hell?
Well, they're partially, I think they misworded it. It's about getting his parents to screw. That's the whole point.
So
that particular essay went on to describe Marty as surviving the sexual terrorism of his mother. Again, no footnote provided or anything to.
I'm sorry, but it wasn't Marty. It was Calvin Klein the whole time.
Of course. Anyway.
I think that's a movie for time travel enthusiasts alike, of any history or age or anything. Just it's a very good time traveling film.
Unlike Dial of Destiny,
it's a lot better than Time Chasers.
Oof.
I always say Computor because of Mystery Science Theater.
Computer.
Look, it's the time traveling entrapment on the computer.
You can do anything with a computer, you know. I think we've proven that over and over. You just type a few things.
You can talk to two buddies and record a podcast.
All because of the Manhattan Project.
Even if that computer has no actual power whatsoever.
You have no power here.
Flip a couple of switches, you're good.
Oh, yeah. They did flip some switches in that movie.
Exactly.
Twisted some knobs, too.
Man, they were going nuts. They were treating those fucking...
Oh, the electrical level? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, fucking... Or, even going back as far as Metropolis. You know? Or maybe it was even Christopher Lloyd hanging off the clock tower.
And we never see those characters again in the whole film. It's fantastic.
No,
they disappear.
They're dead. They got locked in a room and the room was thrown away.
That is probably the case, yeah. Maybe we'll find out in some long gestating sequel to the Manhattan Project what happened to that crew. Maybe we'll never know. I don't know.
They went on to create cancer.
Yeah.
Thanks to some frozen amphibians.
Greenlit!
Cancer frogs! I can't wait!
If any of that happens, we'll be sure to talk about it here.
Smooth Thrills Radio Hour, Cancer Frogs.
Sounds like a good time, yeah. Until that day comes, thank you for listening to the Smooth Thrills Radio Hour. We will see you next time.
And so, another show has come to a close. You may now return to your busy day of scientific experimentation, like putting aluminum foil in the microwave oven just to see what happens. I know you well, my dear listeners. The Smooth Thrills Radio Hour is a production of Ghostcraft and is recorded live deep inside an abandoned shopping mall in Dallas, Texas, home to an absolutely staggering number of secret laboratories. Enjoy the rest of your day.
This has been a Ghostcraft presentation.